Someone here from WynnStrength.com, bringing you the final day of the final week of the Darkhorse training program by Brian Alsruhe. Like usual, I'll leave links below for the original video where Brian Alsruhe outlines the program and goes into some details as to how to complete the program yourself, as well as that Lift Vault website where they've taken that information and placed it into a free Google spreadsheets so you can do the program on your own without having to worry about converting all that information over hand by hand into Excel. As usual, today, the final day, wrapping up with some upper body pushing and pulling. So I actually did some conditioning today for the opening of the workout. We had a little bit of extra time, and generally with the upper body days, it has been easy to fit the workouts into the scheduled time frame. That was just 4 rounds of 5 push-ups, 2 chin-ups, 30 seconds of rowing, and 5 air jumps. Nothing crazy, but just to get that blood flowing and with a focus on upper body movements. Speaking of upper body movements, the warm-ups, or the main movements for today were neutral grip pull-ups and Z presses. Really a big fan of the Z press. And the neutral grip pull-ups are kind of good. Also just activate a little bit different area of the back and a little different bicep movement there. I'm actually able to train a little bit more of the forearm, the brachioradialis, I believe. Mainly because we're switching to a neutral grip, much like a hammer curl, where you kind of disengage a little bit more of that bicep and increase that forearm activation. That's kind of the main reason to do a neutral grip pull-up, just to activate different, just like a pull-up this way, activates more lats, chin-up activates a bit more bicep, the neutral grip activates a little bit more forearm, so we're able to play around with different arm movements and different back movements while still overloading and working at that back and getting a good back movement, because everyone wants and needs a strong back. I'm a big proponent of back training rather than arm training. If you're going to do arms, you might as well include your back in those movements. Now let's back onto track. So today's main movements were the neutral grip pull-ups. We added a little bit of weight because we did do some lower rep work. Again, not as much weight as my regular pull-up or chin-up. I think because we are accessing a different muscle group to train with, as well as I haven't been familiar with this movement because I only recently got the neutral grip bars or the neutral grip handles of Amazon. Just find it really cheap, so I don't think it really matters which handles you buy. These seem to be working just fine. I think they were $10 to $15 on Amazon. Nothing crazy, just the Amazon Basics brand, but it seems to do the job just fine. So from there, we did 5 pounds for a weighted set of 8 for the first set, and then for our Z press, we were doing 1 rep maxes today. We hit 165 for a good single, and we just did some ab twists with the dumbbells, 20 pounds, 10 aside, and then kettlebell swings for 10. So nothing crazy, again with the abs and conditioning. For the Z press, for that second set, we jump up from 165 pounds up to 185 pounds. That might have been too big of a jump because what happens is that's the weight I use for the next 3 sets. We did cut off the final 2 working sets for the max effort just because I was feeling quite fatigued, and that final 185 was actually really, really slow and had to grind that one out. It almost was a fail, but we did push through that and were able to get a new PR for 3 singles. Ideally, I want to pyramid up so that the top set is my actual PR, but we did do a huge jump of 20 pounds, which is a bit big for a shoulder movement, especially an accessory shoulder movement. In hindsight, I probably could have jumped up in steps and maybe hit 190 today rather than 185 for sets across. But nonetheless, I'll take that as a win. 185 pounds for the Z press is quite good. Some form needs to be addressed, especially when the weights get heavy, but I really do enjoy this movement. I'm really hoping that it translates over into a stronger overhead press, because I think it addresses a lot of the weak points that I have for the overhead press, mainly the core bracing as well as the bar path, because when those two go wrong, the weight just doesn't go where you want it to, and it's really hard to complete a Z press that's heavy when you don't brace your abs properly, because you just crumple under the weight, and when the bar path isn't correct, you start pushing the weight out in front of you. You have nowhere to go but fall backwards effectively if you don't line that bar path and get that body positioning right. And it also takes out any leg drive that you might possibly be engaging, whether consciously or subconsciously, whether you're doing that on purpose or not, you might be initiating the movement with a little bit of leg drive, which I sometimes tend to do when the weight gets heavy, and this removes that completely because obviously you're not on your legs, so being on your butt, you can't do anything from the waist down. With that being said, the NutriGrip pull-ups stayed at 10 pounds across for sets of 8. I think that was a good variance. I probably could have gone a little heavier, but I think that was a good weight to kind of mitigate the stress and allow me to hit those 1 rep maxes for the Z presses. From there, again, cut off those final 2 sets just to keep the workout time and the fatigue in mind, as well as the fact that final 185 didn't go up that well, so I didn't want to add any extra stress that was unnecessary. I move on to the volume set. So the first volume set, we dropped the reps of the pull-ups from 8 to 5, and we increased that weight to 25 pounds with the weight. I think that was a good choice. It felt solid. It didn't feel too difficult, and I was able to complete the 5 relatively nicely, probably RPE 7, which is a good RPE to stay at for the volume work. And then we dropped that weight for the Z press from 185, now we're doing 150 for sets of 5. The first AMRAP set only got 5, so it probably shows probably a decent weight selection for the max effort work, and then we weren't able to hit that 2 over the 5. But again, we did keep the ab twist and the kettlebell swings in, so we're still keeping in the extra abs and conditioning work, which is kind of nice. That pretty much replicates, we did the first set, and the first and the second set were pretty much identical in terms of weight and reps hit, and then we just skipped out on that final volume set. So again, I think conditioning is staying just fine, and again, the program, because for whatever the case may be, I think my upper body is responding a lot better to it than the lower body days. I think the upper body is keeping up conditioning wise than the lower body, but obviously there's also the points of the fact that upper body is using absolutely less weight. I'm not loading 400 pounds, never touches my hands in any of these movements. The heaviest I ever do is 185, so that's a warm-up set for the lower body, and we're engaging a lot less muscle groups in the upper body, so the overall stress that the body is enduring is a lot less, especially with the Z press. Now I remove the legs out of the equation too, so we're just focusing on abs up. Overall stress isn't as great. We're able to keep up with those rest periods, keep up with the effort levels that we needed to, and because we're leaving out half of the body, whereas when we squat, we're still engaging to a degree the back as well as the arms and stuff, because it is a full body movement, especially with that deadlift and squat. We're doing those two now. We're working out a lot more of the body with a lot heavier weight. I mean, relatively, it's probably the same percentages of my performance and my 1 rep maxes, but absolute wise, that weight is a lot heavier on these lower body days than it is on upper body days, which might explain why the upper body days are able to I'm able to get through a lot more without being too fatigued at the end of it. So we move on from there to the dynamic effort work of the day, which was just regular grip bench press. This is one of the few dynamic efforts that has actually shown some signs of improvement, I think, over the course of the 9 weeks. We did 165 pounds for the first 2 sets, and then for the rest of the 8 sets we hit 175 pounds for triples. Feeling great. I think the bar moved quite fast. I don't think we had that much of a slowdown in speed, not so much that I would want to decrease the weight. There was no breakdown in form, no pain in the bicep, no pain in the shoulder. We're keeping within the rest period, so all of that was all within that 10-minute time frame, which was great. So I think the bench press, dynamic effort-wise, is showing signs of improvement, or has shown signs of improvement. I'm really stoked with that. Out of all the lifts, at least there is one thing that's going up for the dynamic effort method. And again, no shoulder pain, which is the greatest part of that, and we're able to keep within that time frame. So definitely a big win for the bench press. I'm yet to see if that translates over to my 1 rep max bench press, and if the other lifts have been affected as much by the lack of progress in the dynamic effort method. So with that being said, if you want to catch up with the previous episodes of the last 9 weeks of the program, I'll leave a playlist right here like usual. Also just click on that as well, so you'll be able to see my testing day as well as my final rating and review of the program, so you can decide if this is a program you want to do for yourself. This has been Selwyn from Wynn Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.